The door to my bedroom stood open when I came home that evening, but it wasn't my room anymore. My younger sister's belongings already occupied the space where mine had been only this morning. Her pastel bedding stretched across what used to be my mattress, her cosmetics arranged on what used to be my desk, her clothes hanging in what used to be my closet. The afternoon light filtered through the window at an angle I recognised, but everything else had been erased. "We thought you wouldn't mind," Mother said from behind me, her voice carrying that particular lightness she used when she'd already made up her mind about something. "Emma needs more space for her art supplies. Your room has the better natural light." Emma, always Emma. I stood in the doorway of what had been my sanctuary for 6 years, watching her arrange her sketchbooks on the shelf where my medical textbooks had been stacked just hours ago. She didn't look at me. She never had to. "Where are my things?" I asked. My voice sounded flat even to my own ears. "We moved them to the storage room," Father said, not looking up from his newspaper in the living room. "It's perfectly adequate. You're hardly ever home anyway with your hospital rotations." The storage room. 8 by 10 feet. No window. A single bulb hanging from the ceiling. The place where we kept broken furniture and boxes of things no one wanted but couldn't throw away. I walked through the apartment to see it. Someone had shoved a narrow bed against the wall. My belongings sat in 3 cardboard boxes on the floor. The room smelled of dust and old wood. When I closed the door, the sound echoed in a way that made the space feel even smaller. That evening, Emma's boyfriend visited. His name was Vincent, and he had the kind of easy confidence that came from never being denied anything. He kissed her in the doorway of my old room, her room now, and complimented the light, the space, how much better it suited her artistic temperament. "Your sister must be understanding," he said, loud enough for me to hear from the storage room where I was trying to study by the weak overhead bulb. "Linda doesn't care about these things," Emma replied. "She's always been practical." Practical. The word they used when they meant convenient to overlook. I had been practical when I gave up art classes, so Emma could attend the prestigious academy. I had been practical when I worked 3 jobs to help pay for her supplies while putting myself through medical school. I had been practical when I never complained about coming second, always second, to her needs, her dreams, her supposedly fragile artistic soul. The weeks blurred together. I woke early in the storage room, the walls so close I could touch them from my bed. I studied under light that made my eyes ache. I came home late from the hospital to find Emma entertaining friends in my old room, their laughter spilling into the hallway like light from under a door. No one asked if I was tired. No one asked if I minded. No one asked anything at all. Vincent started staying for dinner regularly. He and Emma would sit close together at the table while Mother served them first, asked them about their day, smiled at their plans. Father would nod approvingly at Vincent's career prospects. Something in finance, something stable for when he and Emma married, when they married. I sat at the far end of the table and ate quickly, efficiently, practically. I had learned not to wait for anyone to notice me. The food tasted like nothing. Everything tasted like nothing by then. One night in December, I came home to find Vincent in the apartment alone. Emma had gone to a gallery opening with Mother. Father was working late. The apartment felt different in the emptiness, colder somehow, despite the heating. "Linda," Vincent said when he saw me. He was standing in the kitchen, helping himself to tea as if he lived there. "I wanted to talk to you." I set my hospital bag down, exhaustion pulling at my bones. "About what?" "Emma's been stressed lately. The gallery opening, the competition she's entering. It's a lot of pressure." He stirred sugar into his cup, the spoon clinking against the ceramic. "I think it would help if you made more of an effort to support her." I stared at him. "I work 16-hour shifts at the hospital." I know, but family should come first, don't you think?" He smiled at me, that easy smile that expected agreement. "Maybe you could come to her exhibition next week. It would mean a lot to her, and to me." I have a double shift that day. Surely you could switch with someone. The smile didn't waver. Emma talks about how you're always too busy for family things. It makes her feel like you don't care about her art. The words settled into my chest like stones. Too busy. Didn't care. As if I hadn't given up everything so she could have her art. As if my work, keeping people alive, mattered less than her paintings. "I'll see what I can do," I heard myself say. "Great!" He clapped me on the shoulder like we were friends. "You're a good sister, Linda. Emma's lucky to have you." I went to the storage room and closed the door. The walls pressed in. The single bulb flickered. I sat on the edge of the narrow bed and stared at my hands. The hands that had spent the day stitching wounds, administering medication, comforting patients who had no one else. The hands that were never enough for the people who were supposed to love me. The exhibition came and I went, having switched shifts with a colleague who needed next weekend off. I stood in the gallery surrounded by Emma's paintings, beautiful, ethereal things that captured light in ways I couldn't understand, and watched people admire them. Watched Vincent stand beside her, proud and possessive. Watched mother and father beam at everyone who offered congratulations. No one introduced me. No one mentioned that I was family. I was just another face in the crowd, another body taking up space in Emma's moment. When I tried to leave early, Vincent caught my arm. "Stay for the toast," he said. "Emma would want you to hear this." So I stayed. I listened as he announced their engagement. I watched Emma's face light up with a joy I'd never seen directed at me. I heard Mother cry with happiness. I saw Father shake Vincent's hand firmly, approval radiating from him like heat. "To Emma," Vincent said, raising his glass. "The most talented, beautiful, deserving woman I've ever known." Everyone drank. I lifted my glass to my lips but tasted nothing. On the drive home, Mother talked about wedding plans. Father discussed venues and budgets. Emma sat in the back seat beside me, radiant, untouchable. No one asked if I was happy for her. No one asked me anything. When we got home, Emma went straight to her room, my old room, and called friends to share the news. Her excited voice carried through the walls. I went to the storage room and lay on the narrow bed in the dark. The walls were very close. The air was very thin. I felt myself getting smaller and smaller, compressed by the space, by the silence, by the accumulated weight of being overlooked. That night I couldn't sleep. My chest felt tight. Wrong. I told myself it was exhaustion, stress, the long hours and the poor diet and the lack of proper rest. I told myself it would pass. It didn't pass. 3 days later, I collapsed during my shift at the hospital. The other doctors rushed over, concerned voices swirling above me, but I couldn't make out the words. I felt my heartbeat stuttering, irregular, wrong. I knew what it meant. I'd seen it in patients, taught others to recognize the signs. But knowing didn't help. Nothing helped. They put me on a gurney. Someone held my hand. Someone else ran tests. The diagnosis came quickly. Acute cardiac event, brought on by extreme stress and exhaustion. My heart, which I'd never thought to monitor, had simply decided it was too tired to continue. I wanted to laugh. Even my body had grown tired of being overlooked. They called my family. I heard Mother's voice in the hallway talking to a doctor. But she never said anything was wrong. She's always been so strong. Strong. Another word for convenient to ignore. Emma came to the bedside. She looked frightened, smaller than usual. "Linda, can you hear me?" I could hear her. I could hear everything. But speaking required energy I no longer had. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I didn't know you were so tired. I didn't think—" She never did. None of them ever did. Father arrived with Vincent. They stood at the foot of the bed, talking in low voices about treatment options. transfer to better facilities, specialists who might help. Their concern felt abstract, like they were discussing someone they'd heard about rather than someone they knew. The machines beeped steadily. The light through the hospital window looked the same as the light through my old bedroom window, warm, golden, indifferent to the pain happening beneath it. I closed my eyes. The beeping grew distant. The voices faded, the tightness in my chest finally, mercifully, began to ease. My last thought was about the storage room, about how dark it had been, about how small, about how I'd finally found a smaller space to occupy. Then, nothing. The first thing I noticed was light, real light, not the weak bulb from the storage room. Sunlight streaming through a window, warm on my face, carrying the scent of spring. The second thing I noticed was space. The room around me felt open, airy. When I stretched my arms, they didn't hit walls. The third thing I noticed was my body. Younger, lighter. The exhaustion that had lived in my bones for years had vanished. I sat up slowly. The room resolved into focus. My old bedroom. Not Emma's room, mine. My medical textbooks on the shelf. My posters on the wall. My desk in the corner where morning light pooled like water. But I remembered. I remembered all of it. The storage room, the exhibition, the hospital, the ending. My hands trembled as I reached for my phone. The date on the screen made my breath catch. 3 years earlier. Before the room had been taken. Before Vincent. Before everything that had led to that hospital bed. I was 19 again, but with the mind and memory of someone who had lived, suffered, and died a second chance. The bedroom door opened. Mother stood in the doorway, and I saw her clearly for the first time in years, really saw her, the way she held herself, the expectation in her eyes, the unspoken assumption that I would agree to whatever she was about to say. Linda, your father and I have been talking. Emma needs more space for her art supplies, and your room has the better light. We'd like you to switch rooms with her. The words hung in the air, the same words, the same request, the same inevitable outcome, if I allowed it. But I was not the same person anymore. No, I said. The word felt strange in my mouth, foreign, powerful. Mother blinked. I'm sorry? No, I repeated more firmly. This is my room. I'm not giving it up. Don't be selfish, Linda. Your sister's art is important. My work is important too. I stood up, and the movement felt different, strong, certain. I need this space for studying. I need the light just as much as Emma does, and I'm not moving to the storage room. Mother's expression shifted through confusion to irritation. We've already decided. You decided without asking me. That's not a family decision. That's you taking something from me and expecting me to smile about it. I kept my voice level, calm. I'm saying no. Emma can have the guest room if she needs more space. The guest room is smaller. Then she'll make it work. Artists are supposed to be creative, aren't they? I watched Mother's face register shock. In my old life, I had never spoken to her like this. I had always been practical, accommodating, easy to overlook. But that version of me had died in a hospital bed, exhausted and alone. This version of me had nothing left to prove. Mother left without another word. I heard her talking to Father in low, urgent tones. Emma's voice joined them, rising with indignation. They were discussing me, my sudden defiance, my unreasonable behaviour. I didn't care. I spent the morning reorganising my room, reclaiming it. Each book I placed on the shelf felt like a declaration. Each object I arranged on my desk felt like taking back territory. When Emma tried to come in and argue with me, I simply closed the door and locked it. Linda, she called through the wood, this isn't fair. I need that room. Then you should have asked, I called back, before assuming I'd just give it up. The silence that followed was satisfying in a way I'd never experienced before. That evening, Father tried the authoritarian approach. "Linda, this family makes decisions together. You're being incredibly selfish about a simple room change." I looked at him across the dinner table, at the man who had never once asked me how I was, what I needed, whether I was tired. "You're right, families should make decisions together, so let's make them together from now on, starting with my room, which I'm keeping." "Your sister's art career. I'm going to be a doctor. I need space to study. My career matters too, or it should." I met his gaze without flinching. "Unless you're saying Emma's dreams are more important than mine." He couldn't say it, not out loud, not when I'd made the comparison so explicit. The meal continued in uncomfortable silence. Emma picked at her food, shooting resentful glances my way. Mother looked confused, as if she couldn't understand where her compliant daughter had gone. Father ate mechanically, clearly trying to figure out how to regain control of a situation that had slipped away from him. I ate slowly, tasting my food for the first time in years. Everything had flavour again. The weeks that followed established a new pattern. Emma got the guest room and complained constantly about the space, the light, the unfairness of it all. Mother tried periodic guilt trips, reminding me of all the sacrifices they'd made for my education. Father grew cold and distant, his disapproval palpable. But I held my ground. Every time they pushed, I pushed back. Calmly, firmly, without anger, but without yielding. I also changed other things. When Mother asked me to pick up extra shifts at my part-time job to help pay for Emma's art academy fees, I said no. I needed that time to study. When Father suggested I skip a major exam to attend Emma's gallery showing, I declined. My education came first. When they called me selfish, I agreed. Yes, I'm being selfish. I'm putting my needs first for once. If that's wrong, then I've been wrong my entire life. But I don't think I was. The transformation wasn't easy. They resented my boundaries. They missed the version of me who bent and accommodated and disappeared when convenient. But I died once from being that person. I wouldn't die again. 6 months after my rebirth, Emma met someone at an art opening. His name was Vincent, and when he came to dinner for the first time, I recognised him immediately. The easy confidence, the charming smile, the way he looked at Emma like she was a prize he'd won. This was the man who would have become my brother-in-law. The man who had told me to be more supportive. The man who had never once asked about my life, my work, my dreams. "You must be Linda," he said, extending his hand. "Emma's told me about you." "Has she?" I shook his hand briefly, then let go. "She says you're studying medicine. That's impressive." "Thank you." I didn't elaborate, didn't try to make conversation, didn't perform the role of the grateful, admiring sister. He seemed taken aback by my brevity. People like Vincent expected warmth, engagement, the social lubrication that made interaction smooth. I gave him nothing but politeness, distant, cool, sufficient. During dinner, he tried to charm the family. He complimented Mother's cooking, discussed business with Father, praised Emma's latest paintings. His attention swept around the table like a spotlight, illuminating everyone in turn. When it reached me, I met his gaze steadily and said nothing. "Linda, Vincent was just saying he might be able to help you with networking," Mother prompted. "His firm has connections to several hospitals." "I appreciate the offer, but I'm managing fine on my own," I said. Vincent's smile flickered slightly. "I'm happy to help. It's important to have good connections in any field. I prefer to build my career on my skills rather than connections." I kept my tone neutral, factual. "But thank you." The conversation moved on, but I felt Vincent watching me occasionally throughout the meal. He wasn't used to being dismissed, even politely. That intrigued him, which was mildly amusing. Emma, however, grew irritated. After dinner, she cornered me in my room, the room she still resented me for keeping. "Why were you so rude to Vincent?" I wasn't rude. I was polite. You barely talked to him. I answered his questions. I didn't realize I was required to do more. I turned back to my textbook, making it clear the conversation was over. He's important to me, Linda. The least you could do is make an effort. I looked up at her, really looked at her. At 19, Emma was beautiful in that effortless way some people were. Luminous skin, expressive eyes, the kind of face that invited affection. She'd never had to work for attention. It had always flowed to her naturally. Why? I asked. What? Why is the least I could do to make an effort with your boyfriend? What have you done to make an effort with my life? She stared at me. That's different. How? You've never, she struggled for words. You've never needed support like I do. I've always needed support. You just never noticed. I closed my textbook. Emma, I spent years giving up things for you. Time, money, space, attention. I did it because I thought that's what family meant. But it only went one direction. You took and never once asked what it cost me. That's not fair. It's completely fair, but I'm not angry about it anymore. I'm just done. I met her eyes. I hope you and Vincent are happy together. I genuinely do. But I'm not going to sacrifice myself for your happiness anymore. I'm not going to be invisible so you can shine brighter. Emma's face flushed. I never asked you to be invisible. You didn't have to ask, I just was. I opened my textbook again. Now, if you don't mind, I have an exam tomorrow. She left without another word. I heard her crying to Mother later, heard Mother's soothing voice and Father's low rumble of disapproval. They were talking about me, about my attitude, about this inexplicable change. Let them talk. I had studying to do. Vincent continued visiting, and his relationship with Emma deepened. Mother approved, Father approved. The trajectory was clear. Engagement, marriage, the merging of two lives. But something had shifted. Vincent started seeking me out during his visits, asking about my studies, my opinions, my goals. At first, I thought it was polite interest. Then I realized it was something else. He was intrigued by my indifference. One evening, I found him waiting in the hallway outside my room. Emma was taking a phone call in the guest room. Mother and Father had gone out. Linda, he said, can we talk? About what? You. He leaned against the wall, studying me. You're different from your sister. Obviously. No, I mean, you're not like anyone I've met. Most people try so hard to be liked. You don't seem to care. I care about being respected. There's a difference. I started to move past him, but he shifted to block my path. I respect you, he said. His voice had dropped, become more intimate. I think you're fascinating, actually. The way you focus on your goals, the way you don't need validation from others. I understood then. In my old life, Vincent had barely noticed me. But now, by refusing to seek his approval, I'd become interesting to him. By establishing boundaries, I'd created mystery. By being unavailable, I'd become desirable. It was almost funny. Vincent, I said calmly, you're dating my sister. This conversation ends now. What if I wasn't? You are. But what if... No. I met his eyes with absolute certainty. Even if you weren't with Emma, the answer would be no. You're not the kind of man I'm interested in. His expression flickered. Surprise, then confusion, then the first hint of rejection. Why not? Because you're only interested in me now that I'm not interested in you. That's not attraction, that's ego. I stepped around him. Good night, Vincent. I went into my room and locked the door. I heard him standing in the hallway for a long moment before finally walking away. The next few weeks grew tense. Vincent continued visiting, but something had changed in how he looked at Emma versus how he looked at me. Emma noticed. Mother noticed. The atmosphere in the apartment shifted, became charged with unspoken tensions. Then came the night that changed everything. I came home from the hospital to find Vincent and Emma arguing in the living room. Mother and father were out again, leaving them alone. I tried to slip past to my room, but Vincent's voice stopped me. "You're not like her, Emma. You never will be." "Like who?" Emma's voice was shrill, desperate. "Your sister. She has this strength, this certainty. You're always looking for validation, always needing to be told you're special. You told me I was special." "I thought you were, but next to Linda..." I stepped into the room. Both of them turned to look at me, Emma with tears streaming down her face, Vincent with something like hunger in his eyes. "Don't," I said to him, "don't do this." "Linda, I can't stop thinking about you. That's not my problem." I looked at Emma. "And it's not your fault. He's the one making the choice to be cruel." "But he's right," Emma whispered. "You are stronger. You always have been. I'm just the pretty one, the one everyone likes, because I need them." The words hung in the air. For the first time, I saw Emma clearly, not as the favoured sister, but as someone who had been shaped by favouritism into someone fragile. She'd been taught that her worth came from being treasured, protected, supported. She'd never learnt to stand on her own because she'd never had to. In my old life, I'd resented her. But now, I felt something closer to pity. "You're not just anything," I said quietly, "but you need to figure out who you are without people telling you. And you definitely need to figure it out without him." I looked at Vincent. "Leave. Don't come back." "You can't tell me. This is my home. You've disrespected my sister and made everyone uncomfortable with your inappropriate interest in me. Leave now, or I'll call father and explain exactly what's been happening." Vincent's face flushed with anger, but he left. The door slammed behind him. Emma collapsed onto the couch, sobbing. I sat beside her, not too close, but near enough. "I'm sorry," she said between gasps. "I'm so sorry, Linda, for everything, for the room, for taking you for granted, for everything." "I know," I said. "I didn't realise how much I'd hurt you. I didn't realise..." She looked at me with red-rimmed eyes. "When did you get so strong?" "When I had to," I answered. "When being weak almost killed me." She didn't understand the full truth of that statement, but she didn't need to. She just needed to understand that things had changed, that I had changed, that the old dynamic was gone forever. Mother and father came home to find Emma crying, and me sitting calmly beside her. When they demanded to know what happened, I told them the truth. Vincent had made inappropriate advances toward me, disrespected Emma, and been asked to leave. Father's face went red with anger, not at Vincent, but at me. "You drove him away? Emma loved him." "Emma deserves better than a man who would betray her for her sister," I said. "If you can't see that, then you don't understand what love is supposed to look like." Mother put her arm around Emma, shooting me a look of pure venom. "You couldn't stand to see your sister happy, could you? You had to ruin it." "I didn't ruin anything. Vincent did that himself." I stood up. "But think whatever you want. I'm done trying to prove my worth to any of you." I went to my room with its space and light, and closed the door. The following months were difficult. Emma struggled with the breakup, oscillating between blaming Vincent and blaming me. Mother and father remained cold, treating me like a disruptive force that had shattered their family's peace. They didn't understand that the peace had been built on my silence, my sacrifice, my disappearance. But something unexpected happened. Emma began to change. Without Vincent's constant validation, without mother and father's immediate comfort, she was forced to confront herself. She spent long hours in the guest room, painting with a ferocity I'd never seen before. She stopped asking for approval on every piece. She stopped needing constant reassurance. One night, she knocked on my door. "Can I come in?" I considered saying no, then I opened the door. She stood in the doorway, looking uncertain. "I've been thinking about what you said, about figuring out who I am without people telling me. And I think I've been afraid of it, being alone with myself." She twisted her hands together. "You're not afraid of that. You never have been." "I was afraid," I said. "I just didn't have the luxury of showing it." "Will you teach me?" The question was small, vulnerable. "How to be like you?" "I can't teach you to be like me, but I can teach you to be yourself." I gestured to the chair at my desk. "Sit." That night, we talked for hours. Really talked. Maybe for the first time in our lives. I told her about medical school, about the pressure, about the exhaustion I'd felt in my old life, carefully framing it as current stress rather than the past life experience. She told me about her art, about her fear that she wasn't talented enough, that she'd been praised for potential rather than achievement. "Mother and father love you," I said, "but they didn't do you any favours by protecting you from every difficulty." "They didn't love you," Emma said quietly. "I see that now. They just expected you to be fine on your own." Yes, that must have been lonely. It was the first time anyone in my family had acknowledged that. It was. "I'm sorry." She meant it. I could hear it in her voice, see it in her eyes. "I'll do better. I'll be a real sister if you'll let me." I thought about my old life, about dying alone in a hospital bed while my family stood around confused by my pain. I thought about this second chance, about the choice to forgive or to hold on to old wounds. "Okay," I said, "we can try." The next year passed in gradual healing. Emma and I grew closer, not as close as some sisters, but honest with each other in a way we'd never been. She became more independent, more confident. She entered competitions without mother's encouragement. She sold paintings without father's connections. She became someone I could respect. Mother and father were slower to change. They still didn't understand my boundaries, still occasionally tried to guilt me into sacrificing for Emma's needs. But Emma started defending me, started saying no on my behalf. "Linda needs that time to study," she'd say, or "Linda already said no, and I agree with her." It was strange, having an ally in the family. Strange, but good. I graduated top of my class from medical school, not because I'd sacrificed everything, but because I'd protected my space, my time, my energy. I'd learned that self-care wasn't selfish, it was survival. Emma attended my graduation with a painting she'd made, an abstract piece that somehow captured light the way my old room looked in the morning. "For your new apartment," she said. "So you remember where you came from." "Thank you," I said, and meant it. Mother and father came too, though father still seemed uncomfortable with my success. Mother tried to take credit for it, telling people about all the support they'd given me. I didn't contradict her. It didn't matter anymore. After the ceremony, I stood outside the auditorium and thought about the storage room, about the darkness, about how close those walls had been. I thought about Vincent, who had moved on to another relationship, someone who needed his validation, who made him feel important. I'd heard he and his new girlfriend fought constantly, that he was never satisfied, always looking for something just out of reach. I thought about my old life, about the hospital bed, about the moment my heart had given up. And I thought about this life, about the light in my room, about the space I'd claimed and kept. "Are you okay?" Emma asked, coming to stand beside me. "I'm more than okay," I said. "I'm free." That night, I moved into my new apartment. a small place, but bright, with large windows and space to breathe. I hung Emma's painting in the living room where morning light would hit it first. I didn't think about the storage room anymore. I didn't think about Vincent's betrayal or my parents' neglect. I didn't think about dying. I thought about living. Years later, I heard through Emma that Vincent had tried to contact me. He'd heard about my success, the research position, the publications, the reputation I'd built in my field. He'd sent a message asking if we could meet for coffee, catch up, discuss old times. I deleted the message without responding. Emma told me Mother had asked why I never invited them to my apartment, why I kept such distance from the family. Because I'm protecting what I built, I told her, and I won't apologise for that. I know, Emma said. I understand now. She'd grown into a successful artist in her own right. Not because of connections or privilege, but because she'd learned to work for it. She'd learned to stand alone. She'd learned the lessons I'd paid for with a lifetime of invisibility. Sometimes we met for lunch in the city. Sometimes we talked about our work, our lives, our dreams. Sometimes we talked about the past, carefully, honestly, without sugarcoating what had happened. "Do you ever forgive them?" she asked once. "Mother and father?" "I've let go of the anger," I said. "That's not the same as forgiveness. They still don't understand what they did wrong, but I don't need them to understand anymore." "What about me? Do you forgive me?" I looked at my sister, at the woman she'd become, at the person who had learned to see beyond herself. "Yes," I said, "I forgive you." Because forgiveness wasn't about them. It was about me. About releasing the weight I'd carried. About choosing peace over bitterness. I died once under the burden of being overlooked. I wouldn't die again under the burden of resentment. Some nights, when I couldn't sleep, I still thought about that other life. About the storage room with its close walls and weak light. About the hospital bed where I'd taken my last breath. About the bedroom with the morning light that should have been mine all along. But then, I'd look around my apartment, at the space I'd claimed, the life I'd built, the peace I'd earned, and I'd understand the truth. They'd given her my bedroom without asking. They'd taken my light, my space, my place in the family. But in the end, I'd kept something they could never take. I'd kept myself. And in the cold they left behind, the emptiness of relationships built on convenience, the chill of love that only flowed one direction. They'd finally learned what it meant to lose something they'd never valued until it was gone. That was justice enough. That was peace. I closed my eyes and slept in the light I'd reclaimed, in the space I'd defended, in the life I'd died once to earn. And it was enough. It was finally, completely